Okay, so there is a question here from one of our candidates. So let us clarify this and then we will move forward to the next content. Okay. So the question is, if for all we need a database, should we take EC2 instance with SQL Server already pre-built, or should we take a VM and then install SQL database? Is that the question correct? Okay. Okay. So in both cases, remember what we are doing. So finally, what you will be getting is your database, VM on database. So whether you are installing the database or you are getting a database where it is already installed, how is it different?
Difference is there only in case of any development environment. You can have the database server on the same machine. But in production server environment, database is different.
So I don't think that that includes your web server, right? So it could be on a different machine. The question is, should we go with a pre-bundled database, or should we take a virtual machine and then install the database? So if I understand, see, it comes with, see, anyways, in both cases, only thing, the difference is, you are not installing the database. Somebody has already installed and then they are giving it. Anyways, you will have all the fine-tuning parameters. You should be able to change all your parameters and then get it working as expected. Based on your requirement. That's what. So a lot of people actually, even in the interview panel, they get asked, they ask like all different questions. Okay. So the important thing is try to understand the question clearly. You ask again back more questions. So if he says, so what is your requirement? What you are trying to do? So they might have some intention, like, they might have seen some previous use cases. Based on that, they will ask questions. Anybody. That's what they do actually in the interviews. Okay. So then you can actually try to understand, you need to understand the scenario. You need to understand what they are actually trying to achieve. Okay. So for example, okay, you go with Windows with the SQL Server. Okay. So when you go with Windows SQL Server, the license will be included. If you go with a Windows machine and then you want to install SQL Server, you have to think about the SQL license part. So you need to apply some license. So you should have, you have to check, do you have the license already there, or you need to procure a lot of things. Okay. And then if it is a database, okay, are you trying to build it for development environment, QA, or production? Because the things will be different from development, QA, and then pre-production and production. You need to look at high availability. Okay. So you can actually ask more questions. Okay, what are you trying to achieve? So in either case, let's say if you are building a production environment, okay, and you take a bundled SQL Server, how is it like different? Anyways, after only the installation is done. Okay, if you are building a production environment, you have to take 2 SQL servers and enabling this replication and all you have to do anyways.
You can tell us RDS services.
Go for RDS.
Maybe that was the intention.
But that could be the requirement. That is what I am saying. So their intention maybe you will ask more questions and then you will take them to RDS. You will suggest them to RDS. Right? So that is what they'll be expecting. Okay. When I say SQL, so the candidate should ask more questions and you should say like why to use SQL Server? Go for RDS. The candidate should be in a position to tell that. So he should be in a position to explain the advantage of RDS. So that is what people will be expecting when you go with the experience. So SQL software is installed. So when you go for virtual machines, yeah, templates, absolutely. So the templates will be like, with the simple OS, and there are few templates available where some additional software is also installed, like Apache is installed, MySQL database installed, SQL Server installed, SharePoint installed. Not required. You can go to AWS Marketplace. So you can actually, let's say you want to sell something. You want to sell something on AWS. Okay, let's say you have a product. So you can install that and then you can put it on AWS Marketplace. So once you create a machine from that, the machine comes with the software also. Do you remember we have seen Open VPN server? right? So it actually came with the VPN access server, and then there was a configuration wizard. Once you log into the machine, it will ask you a few questions. Say enter, enter, enter. Don't you remember? Gone. So once you enter a few answers, then your configuration is done, and then we can start using it. So there, with OS, we have also got OpenVPN server. So similarly, there are a lot of software which is available on marketplace bundled with your OS. Okay. So depending on the requirement, you can go and search for the product on marketplace. If it is available, take it and you can start using it. So it makes your life a little bit easier. But if you have any custom settings to be applied, then you will get into challenges. So for most of the beginners who are stepping into AWS, the marketplaces instances will work. But if you are looking for building enterprise applications, that is when you will have to look at these replications, etc., and then you will get into challenges. Okay? But it's not different. Whether you take a bundled SQL server or you take the Windows server and then install SQL, it's not different.
Security aspects are.
Yeah, that's anyways there. So even if whether you are building it or whether you are using a pre-bundled software, you always have to look at.
Oh. We are using AWS.
Okay.
For your application, you are using some EC2 instance or database or whatever it is. Finally, at the end of your solution, how the security is managed.
Okay. So I think let's do one thing. It's a very big concept actually. So the security part, we'll take it in next workshop. Okay. So we'll actually. So actually, I want to close the sessions by this weekend batches, and Docker is left out actually. Okay, and for the regular guys, we'll cover that Docker in next week, regular batches. And for the weekend, I want to take a break. I want you to give a break actually, 1 week break, and then we will continue the real-time sessions. And in one of the sessions, we'll continue Docker also. I'll revise the Docker also. Okay, and for you, I think only for you it will be missing, but we'll cover Docker also next week. Yeah. Okay. So the way we are going to continue the sessions is, so we'll close whatever we will be discussing by tomorrow. So for weekend guys, so you missed the chef, right? So you have to come tomorrow. So I am going to cover chef for weekend guys. Okay. And next week will be break. So I'm expecting you to follow whatever we have discussed in the classes, just to revise all of those and be ready with all the basic things. Remember, you have to be ready with basics. At least you should have installed chef server, executed at least user creation, package installation, the simple task. Okay. And similar with Ansible, Jenkins, Git, etc. All of this, you should be ready with basics. And from next week onwards, I'll start giving you, so it's going to be a workshop, full day workshop. Remember, it's full day workshop. Okay, guys, I don't know how you are going to manage online, but it's going to be in a daytime. So see, how much time you can spend. Okay? So it's going to be a full day workshop on every Saturday. So I'm stopping again weekend batch. Okay, so I think ideally it starts by 10 a.m. in the morning and it goes to 5-6. Okay, so the way we get into these workshops is I come with a requirement, just like what. Okay, you imagine you have got a customer who wants to set up some application on AWS and they want to use let's say DevOps tools also for the entire automation. So we'll split that into tasks, multiple tasks, and then we take that. So it's going to be a project, big project. Okay. And then we'll at least try to split it into 3 phases. First week we'll do something, some part of it, and then sometimes you will not be able to do it in one day. It's difficult. So take one task, do it whatever or how much you can do in that workshop, and continue doing it for the next week also, in regular Monday to Friday. Again on the next week we'll take the second phase, third phase. So we'll continue for 3 weeks. See, definitely. Without that, you will not be able to understand. If you need hands-on, that's it. So, I mean, I'll leave up to you, so maybe for experienced guys like you can see, try to understand at a high level, how are we going to implement it. So first thing is, I'll talk about the different phases: architect, build, and then support. I think we keep talking about it. So at least 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and I'm sure actually I'm going to continue this. So this is what the differentiator here, right? So I have been running these workshops since a long time. So I'll continue these projects. So even if you are done with one project and if you want to continue for the second project, come and join. I'm not stopping you. So till you get the job, come and join. So we'll be running different projects alternatively. Once one project is over, absolutely you have to bring your laptops, and then it's going to be continuous practice. So no more sessions. In fact, sessions in the sense I'll take 1 hour for giving the requirement to make you understand what is the requirement. And if you have any questions, you have 1 hour to ask all those questions. And then we will have again for every 2 to 3 hours, we'll have a break. Like again after 2-3 hours, I'll come and then ask you, okay, how is it going? It's kind of again small get together, 15 minutes. What is that called, Ajay? Ajay 15 minutes gap ఉంటుంది. Stand up, yeah, stand up. So we'll have that stand up just to see what is actually going on. If you are stuck or if you are going good, if you have any questions, so we'll have that kind of stand up for 15 minutes or in somewhere in between. Okay, so that's how we are going to continue. All right, so that's fine. So once we run at least one session, you will understand how we are going to continue, and that's going to be like keep running. So you can join for more projects also. I'm fine, absolutely. All right, so let's get continued with our chef content. Yeah.
Then we have this one here,
Hmm.
and we can convert that into using our own local.
And
I'm in my laptop.
Right.
I built a VM.
Right.
I want to create that as a template.
Absolutely.
I put it onto my desktop.
So you want to export it to AWS?
No.
No?
I want to put it onto my desktop. So that later on, at the later stage, I want to just open it when there's no internet connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, the question is, how many of you understand the question? It's a very, very basic question. Remember, it's a very, very basic question. I have a virtual machine. Okay. Now tell me, you should ask more questions. Okay. I'll just show you some questions how to ask the customer. So he's our customer now. So he has some requirement. Okay. He has a virtual machine. Okay. First question. So which virtual hypervisor are you using?
My question is, I have created an EC2 instance.
Oh, created an EC2 instance on AWS. Okay. Okay.
I installed all the required software.
Okay. Install required
I
software.
don't want to pay cost to the Amazon. I want to download that entire machine onto my computer.
Okay, that's good. Yes, absolutely possible. In fact, we have tried that, and we were successful with one kind of condition. Okay, so it's possible. First of all, it's possible to import machines into AWS or export the machines outside. So there is a service called VM import export. So VM import export will help you to upload your machines to AWS or download. So uploading machines to AWS is called import. So you are importing into AWS and you are exporting from AWS. Okay. So that will help you to import and export the machines into AWS. And in fact, we have seen. You remember I was using Zen Server for creating the virtual machines, right? So we created a Zen Server template. And then we installed it very easily without any kind of challenges. But we have to use AWS CLI. There is no option in the web console. You have to use the AWS CLI to import or export the machines. So it will be converted as a bundled task. How many of you have seen the bundled task on the EC2 console left side? Volume, snapshots. Below that, there is a bundled task option. AMIs and bundled tasks, right? So that is that bundled task is for the VM import and export. So we can convert that VM template. In the last session, did you observe? I went to Zen Center and there was a template. When I say quick start, a mission was created from the template. Just like the VirtualBox, we are using OVA file and importing machines. Similarly, so there is an option in Zen Server. So when you create a template, it gives you a OVA file or VDI file, I think, VDI. So this VDI file can be converted. You can copy this VDI file to your machine where you have AWS CLI installed, and then just a simple file. The entire virtual machine will be compressed into a single file. Take that, and then you can upload that to AWS. It goes to AWS S3 bucket. You have to export this to AWS S3 bucket, one of the bucket, and from there you can convert that into a machine. Yes, it was possible. And then when you want to import that, so it worked fine, but the thing is, the condition was, so we should have exported some machine there, or sorry, we should have imported some machine into AWS first, and if you use that AMI to create any machines. So let's say we have first imported CentOS 7 machine to AWS, and then by using that AMI we are running some machines. And if you want to again bring it back to our data center, that is possible. So if you build the machines by using AWS marketplace instances like CentOS 7, Amazon Linux, it was not possible. It was not allowing us. In fact, I wanted to check with you actually. You remember? Yeah, you wanted to check with you. You said you are actually migrating some applications from AWS to this, right? So I wanted to check with you, how are you doing it? Are you using any tool or something like that? They're just oh, they're just taking the file system data, only the data. Yeah, that's what I had, so build the virtual machine, bring the data. Not absolutely, absolutely. That's what you have to do. Yeah. So this will help you to import your machines. So either your local machine, local VMs could be on VirtualBox, Zen server, or VMware also. You can import the machines from any hypervisor. Even VirtualBox machines can also be imported into AWS. Okay. We should copy that virtual machine template file first. Template. From VMware or Zen server or VirtualBox. So they actually come with some appropriate formats like OVA, .vdi, whatever the format, OVA file. So bring it that to the first AWS CLI machine. From there, you can export that into an S3 bucket. From there, you can convert that as an AMI. Just kind of uploading the data. That's it. So, any question? AWS console, web console. Yeah. All right. So let's. LearnChef, yeah. Yeah, they keep running webinars. Chef Rally. Yeah, there would be definitely. I don't know. There is also learnchef.io. Let's go to that. LearnChef Rally. I don't know what it is. Rally is actually they recently started a chef certification, and somebody said it is very expensive. It's around 2 lakhs. Because it is, see, I think I told you, right? What we have seen is just this chef server. Now it's only chef server, but now they have a lot of products, other products like chef compliance, chef security, chef analytics, chef push. There are, yeah. So you will get into, I think, I don't know what are the different certification level if they have any. What is the track? Okay. So definitely, infrastructure automation getting started, begin, developer essentials, local development and testing, becoming a part, 6 hours, extending chef, writing to this. Let us click on one. We'll see. Definitely, see, that's what when you get into a project, you will not be doing all Ansible, Chef, Puppet. Among these 3, you will pick only one, because there are a lot of things you have to do when you get into that product. Chef itself becomes a big world for you. Okay, you will not even have an opportunity to work on Jenkins on all of these things also. Okay, so don't think like Once I automate, what should I do? They will have a lot of work. So you don't need to worry about it.
Infrastructure కాదు, normal applications కూడా వాడతారు.
Absolutely. So now it's like complete application delivery. So now people are not looking at infrastructure automation. It's all about application management, end-to-end delivery. So compliance automation integrated. So just let it. Yeah. So learn creative visible using LAMP configuration. Watch the intro video. Okay. Okay, that's good. I think they have given a lot of videos. I don't know. It looks free. They did not mention any cost also. Using web cookbook. Choose your customer platform. Virtual box. Okay. Okay. I think first of all you should know what are all these actually. What are you trying? The process you will use. What you will learn. I think first of all they are giving the requirement. Yeah. Okay. So first of all you should know what is LAMP. How to install PHP, MySQL and Apache on Linux. So what you will create? Okay, so simple application. If you access that application, you will see something like that. So it's the same PHP example we have seen, right? That was a LAMP example. And the process you will use test kitchen. What you will learn? Definitely, it's going to be like it's a very advanced level. So they are using all of this. So definitely, so that's going to be our next step. So it's like a kind of basic to intermediate level that we are covering. Okay. And if you want to go to advanced concepts, you can pick any one configuration management tool like Ansible or Chef. See all the kind of videos like this, so that you'll come to know how to use these in projects. Okay. Ruby. So Ruby is a programming language, and this is actually going to be essential for understanding the Chef syntax. Just give me a minute. All right. So let us look at what is Ruby. So the agenda is we'll see the introduction, how to install Ruby, how to run Ruby, adding comments, the basic developer stuff. How do we add comments? What is the syntax? What are the data types? Okay, how to write if conditions. So we'll take all of these at a very high level. So we have got approximately 3 hours, and we have to cover all of this. All right. Okay. So just to give you a quick introduction. So Ruby was introduced by a guy called Yukihiro Matsumoto. He's a Japanese guy. So he has developed this language. So it originated from somewhere in middle 1990s, and it was written in C language. So it's like a C is what is low-level programming language, and then Ruby is high-level programming language. Okay. So Ruby is a dynamic interpreter. In fact, Perl, Python, these are also written in C language only. Okay. So Ruby is a dynamic interpreter language which has many strong features of various languages, very much similar to many other languages. And it is also a OOPS concept. It has OOPS concept, object-oriented programming language. Of course, it is free and also open source, and it is also case sensitive. So whatever you run mostly on Linux, they are all case sensitive. Python, Ruby, Java, then your Perl, these are all case sensitive languages. And if you know already C++ or Perl, you will feel the syntax is also very much similar to C++ and Perl. Okay, and what it offers, so it offers automatic memory management, some of the advantages. Okay, and it can be embedded into HTML, which means you can develop web applications. So there are different use cases where you can use Ruby. For a simple scripting language, you can use that as a scripting language. You can use to develop network programs where you need to connect to some remote machine and then do some stuff. Okay, and then configuration management. Chef and Puppet are built using Ruby. So for configuration management, system automation, we can use Ruby, and we can also build web applications. Have you heard Ruby on Rails? Ruby on Rails is a web application framework which you can use to build the websites. It's very much similar to Java Spring, Struts applications, Python, Django. These are all MVC frameworks. Okay, so then the installation pretty similar. Yum install Ruby, and then if you are on Ubuntu, apt-get install Ruby. If it is Windows machine, you can download the Ruby exe file or MSC file and then install it. Okay, and let us see a quick introduction to Ruby, how we write the first file. So remember, always you should have a .rb extension when you are writing the Ruby files, just to make it as a convention, standard, right? Otherwise, in Linux, is it mandatory to provide any extensions? Not required. But if you share any file with anybody else without any extension, they don't know how to open that. It could be a PDF, it could be an image, it could be a compressed file, it could be a .ruby file. So these extensions will always help you to go with some practice. When you share the code, people can understand, okay, what is written inside your file. Okay, just because of that, you'll have to follow those extensions. Otherwise, it is not mandatory. Okay, so you can put some source code. So just open some files. You can call it a test.rb, sample.rb, and you put some code like this. The way you start bin bash when you use the shell programming, right? So when you write a shell program, you always start your shell programs with /bin/bash. What is the meaning of it? When you to load that module, okay. Libraries are present, okay. Right? It's very much close. So it says like the rest of the program is actually a Ruby program. So to execute this, it will be executed by using this binary. So all the rest of the code will be executed by this binary, and it is called a Shebang character. Hash and a bang. It's called Shebang. Shebang. Shebang character. And usually, whenever you start with a hash, it is a comment. But here, since we have a hash and then bang, it becomes a special notation. Okay, so there is an exception for Shebang character. So Shebang character is mentioned for to just let the system know, okay, the rest of the code is actually Ruby code or Python code or shell script. So for any of the programs, the first character would be, or first line would be the interpreter. Okay, and then this is just an example where you write the Ruby statement. Okay, but if you are using a shell, what are all you will put into a shell program? Any commands that you use on Linux can be put into bash, right? But Python or Ruby have different functions. You cannot put the system commands directly into Python or Ruby. They are different programming language and they use a different syntax completely. Okay, so here puts is called a function. Okay, so this is a function, and then you also pass some parameters. Okay, so here puts what put does, it is like echo in your shell program. So whatever you pass as an argument will be printed on the screen. Okay, so if you say puts hello Ruby, and then if you want to execute it, so you can just use Ruby space test.rb when you want to execute, or you can also use dot slash. So there is a again condition. If you want to use dot slash, what you should do, there is another step you have to execute. Once you create the file, and if you want to use dot slash test.rb, what you should do? Dot sh execute permission u plus x, because when you create the file, by default it has only 664 or 644 per root. So read and write maximum, right? If you want executed, you should add executable permission. Then you can say dot slash test.rb. Okay. So that produces this following result. It says hello Ruby. So whatever you pass here will be executed on the screen. Okay. Okay. And there are also a lot of other keywords. Okay. And ideally, when you put a lot of statements, let's say puts hello Ruby, puts hello John, hello Smith, one after another, multiple lines. So Ruby is going to execute the code in the same order from top to bottom. Line 1, then line 2, line 3, line 4, like that. Okay. But there are some special keywords which will help you to change the way the program runs. So there is a begin function which actually will help you to execute something in the starting of the program. Okay. So let's imagine you have a program like this. You have puts and you have a simple function which is like begin. So this is like your header. So header always appears on the top. So what happens when you execute this program? First it is going to print this initializing Ruby program because it is part of your begin. And then the main code will be executed. Okay. And similarly you also have end statement which will help you to execute something at the end of the statement. Let's say you have few numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. and you want to print the total. So you also have calculated the total. So where do you print the total? Usually at the end of the program. So what you can do? You can put it in the end of the program. It's like a footer, right? So you can actually write something like this. So if you look at this order, so ideally, as I said, it is going to execute the program from top to bottom. So this should print first, then this, then this. But here, because of this begin and end keywords, the order will be changed. So first it is going to print initializing Ruby program, then it comes to this is main Ruby program, and then it says terminating Ruby program. Okay. And adding comments. So it's it's very mandatory to add few comments in every script that you are writing, just to make other people understand, like what you are trying to do. If you share with anybody else, they should be in, because if you are developing something, you are actually part of a team. We don't develop everything, right? So sometimes when you share the code with others, they should be in a position to understand what you are trying to do, isn't it? Right? So it's lot of organizations follow this practice. For every line, you should have a comment. You write one line, there should be one comment. So that's important, right? So you need to explain what you are trying to do. So you can add the comment by hash. Okay, so wherever it starts with hash, you can also have something the hash in middle. Then what happens? This is a valid statement. This is a very simple variable assignment, and the rest after hash is a statement. Yes. And you can also have multiple hashes. Okay, but if you have, let's say, 20 lines, all are comments. So a lot of times when we write programs, we also do this. We have a block of code which we want to make a comment. So should we add hash for all the 20 lines? Insert hash, insert hash, insert hash. It becomes a very tedious job, right? So there is a short cut again. So you have again special keywords. So remember, those are capital begin end, and these are small begin end. So the case sensitive is very important, right? So you have special keywords like equals to begin and equals to end. You can put any code in between these two. They're all commented. That portion will not be executed. Okay, so that is very important. So that's very quick introduction to Ruby, and then we'll go to data types. Okay. So what are the data types you have in any other languages? I'm sure all of you might have read the C at least in BTech. So you should recall those data types. How many data types are there? Depends on actually language to language. C has actually a lot of data types, and Java has like more or less. Python has only 3 data types. So depending on the language, you have different data types. What are the generic data types you remember? Integer, character is a single character, and then series of characters, string, and integer. If you have decimals, boolean is one data type, float, and then in C you have short and long integers also, double also, and float also, right? Then we have single character, char type data type, and multiple characters, it is a string, and then we also have arrays, right? What are those arrays? Collection of similar data. Remember that word. Collection of similar data types, right? Because in most of the other languages it is similar data type. So there is a small difference in Ruby. Okay, and then map hashes, hash maps. So hash map is again so JSON values. So they remember the JSON values we have used key value pairs. You have like a variable and value, so you can put multiple key value pairs in one hash map. So data structures in C, I think they're called data structures, right? Isn't it? I didn't know actually. I didn't read the data structure. Hash maps, है ना? Tree linked, yeah, right. So tree linked list. So these are all your different data types. All right. So let us look at what are the Ruby data types. Okay. So we have numbers. It's like a generic thing, numbers, and we have both integers and floats also, different data types. We have strings, no cap, no long and shorts. Okay, here there is a big number again, number and big number. There is no short or double. Okay, arrays. Okay, and we also have hashes, and there is a constant. Constant is similar to I don't know if you know Java. There is actually a variable data type in this one Java. Constant. This is called constant variable. So maybe somebody should help me. If I explain constant, you can recall what is the related data type in Java. And there are also symbols. Okay, so we'll see what are these. So numbers. So we know like 1, 45, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. Without any decimal points, they're all your integers. And if you have a big number, so it's a long number. And I tried a lot of times, like where does this big number actually start? So remember in C, integers are from 2 power, I think up to 2 power 8 or 15, 2 power 15 up to 65,535 it is integer. After that it becomes a long integer something, right? So I have tried a lot of times where does this actually big number starts in Ruby, but I couldn't find that, and it is also different from system to system. So it was difficult for me to get that range exactly. And floating numbers, so you have wherever you have a decimal point, it is a floating number. Okay, so I'll show you this again later. So okay, let us see what are all you can actually do with numbers. What type of operations you can perform usually? Adding, subtraction, multiplication, comparison. These are called arithmetic comparisons, right? So these are all you can perform. So there are different operators. I'll show you again what are the different operators. So these are the basic offerings from any language. You should have symbols like plus, minus, equals to. We need to know how do we use those. We need to know the syntax. Right? And okay, so the next is text or string. So text is represented in Ruby by object of the string class. The class name is string. Okay, so examples. So we have seen one puts hello Ruby. Okay, so remember when you use what you call a string here, the strings should always be surrounded by quotes. It is very, very important. So when you are writing anything and you are writing any strings in Ruby, they should be surrounded by quotes, either single quote or double quote. There is a small difference also in, it's not exactly same. There is a small difference between single quote and double quote. So I'll tell you where should we use single quotes and where should we use double quotes also. Okay. So this is a fair example. I'm a software engineer. Okay. But if I write this like this, what happens? Because after I there is a single quote which I kind of consider as a closing for the first one, and then so you have some kind of M as a software engineer. So what kind of characters are this? They are actually strings, right? But are we giving a single quote or double quote around it? No. So then Ruby interpreter considers this as a syntax error, and it throws an error. It says invalid what do you call no class or method found, something like that. Okay, so if at all you want to write these special characters, so you want to, so in the previous statement your intention is to print a single quote. So when you want to print it, you can always use a backslash. This is called escape character. Have you seen this in shell also? So you have escape characters. So there are a lot of escape characters, right? Single quote, double quote, at the rate, star. These are all special characters. If you want to print those, you can use a backslash. Okay. So this is also very much similar to this. So you can also use a %q and then put the what do you call the string in a %q statement. Put those whatever you want to write within those braces. So that becomes a string again you want to consider. So where could this be example? For example, if you have in a lot of places you want to write a big maybe a sentence or a paragraph with puts, and then you have, imagine you have a lot of single quotes within the paragraph. So instead of giving a backslash for every character, you can put the complete paragraph into a %q braces. So when you have the what do you call string, it could be long string, inside %q you don't need to give any escape characters. So that is a very easiest and a clean way of writing strings. So instead of just backslash, so look at the last statement. It looks so clean, just like the way you write any text in any notepad or wordpad, right? Semicolon, no, it is not mandatory. So in a lot of programming language, you have to close the statement by using a semicolon. Here it is optional. It is optional. You can also use it. So you can use %q here. When you use %q, it is equivalent to giving a single quote around your statement. You can also use %Q. This is equivalent to giving a double quote around your statement. Okay. So this is, let's say, I'll tell you the difference between single quotes and double quotes. Okay. So imagine there is a variable, and where you have name of the variable is name, and the value is Satish. Okay. So I want to print this. So this is how you can print the variable in a Ruby statement. So here, when you say puts my name is, so here the name would be again the variable. So when you want to call this as a variable, you have to tell with this syntax, hash braces, and then use the name of the variable inside your braces. Okay, then what it does, it prints. Okay, so here it prints my name is Satish. Okay, but if you use single quotes around it, and if you have any variables also inside, what it does, it prints the variables as is. This is called string interpolation. So it is when you use double quotes, if you have any variables or functions, anything, it will be executed inside your statements. But if you use single quotes, they don't print anything. So the entire statement will be printed as is, even if you have any special characters, except those single quotes again. So it will be printed as this. Okay. So this is called string interpolation, and this %q is equivalent to single quote, %Q is equivalent to double quote, and sometimes instead of using these brackets, you can also use these square brackets, pipe, plus, and parenthesis. There are different characters that you can use. How many of you use sed? SED? And SED also you can do the same thing. In SED we use a slash, right? So instead of slash you can use again different characters. Okay, so that is also, so most of these are actually kind of inspired from Linux programming. Yeah.
You can use any of these.
Not only these three, there are I think other characters also, like parenthesis, flower braces. Yeah. So there are few more characters. Okay. So what all we can do in by using strings? Just an example: string concatenation, and then a lot of times we also split the string. We want to join the string, right? We want to, let's say, extract one character from a string, maybe by position, the first character, second character, third character, or we want to cut the string by the number of characters. So we do again different operations on strings. So just few examples here. So if you have a string concatenate operation, so there should be a string. And remember, if you want to concatenate a variable, you have to use like this. Okay. So let me show you a few examples also. With the center. Then server is based on Linux here. Yeah. CentOS, based on CentOS. Yeah, it is actually there in our office. So this is Zen Center actually. So this will help you to connect to your remote Zen server. So Zen server has a different interface. So it's like vCenter. Anyway, so now I think it is. Yeah. Definitely there are a lot of changes. Even I worked on, I think, Zen Center, Zen server 6.0, 6.1 time. Now we have 7 point something. A lot of changes are there. Okay. So currently Ruby is also not installed. So if you want to install, just to say yum install. Ruby. Yeah. So I think it is not able to connect to some of the mirrors. That's fine. Okay. So Ruby is installed. So you should be able to execute the Ruby code from here. Okay. So you can also check Ruby version. Okay. Simple Ruby -v. So remember, it's very important to check the Ruby version, because there are a lot of changes when it comes to the versions. So the major versions are 1.8, 1.9, 2.0, and then 2.2. I think now it is 2.4. So it's like JDK 1.56, right? So you have differences. The latest 2.4 something is going on. So the most stable version is either 2.0 or 2.2. A lot of applications might be, I think, running still on 2.0. Okay. Okay. So once we have the Ruby installed, we can actually, I'm going to create a directory here, Ruby, and then I'll write some scripts. Okay. Okay. Let's give some introduction. So by default, when you install the Ruby by using RPM, that is the default path. So you can say user bin Ruby, and then say puts hello Ruby. Okay, that's it. And you can execute it by saying simple Ruby hello.rb, or if you want to execute it by using // you can give a executable permission. Then you can say // Okay. Okay. So that's a quick introduction. So let us see how do we use some numbers or string operations. So for checking integers, we have to cover the arithmetic operators also, plus, minus, symbols and all. So once we go there, then I will show the examples for integers. Let me show you some examples for strings. Okay. Okay. So first one is let's say puts. Let's start with the difference between single quotes and double quotes. I'm going to use. So I'm going to use a simple variable name equals to name. I'm giving some name here. So this is again a string. So should I use single quote or double quote here? Anything is fine. Anything is fine because I don't have any variable again inside the string. So I can use anything there. And here I want to execute, let's say my name is, how do I write it? So that is how you can call a variable. Okay. And then I say Ruby strings.rb. Okay. Or you can also write it in a different way. So my name is the string you want to use, and name is a variable there. So when you are, remember, when you are not giving any quotes around it here, it could be a variable, it could be a function, it could be an integer. Numbers for numbers, you don't need to give any quotes. Okay. But otherwise, if you want to print anything, a statement, it should be surrounded by single quotes or double quotes. Okay. So let us see what this will print. Is it doing the same thing? Okay. So now let us change this using single quotes. So what do you think will be printed? So it will be printed as is. My name is hash name. So the name will not be replaced with the value. Okay. So here, what does this print? That prints the variable name, right? The second one will work because the name is outside single quotes. That is now considered as a regular variable. Okay. So that's the difference between single quote and double quotes. And you can actually use %q also here. It is going to do the same thing. %q. Okay. Again, this is equivalent to your single quote. Right? So it prints the statement as is. If you replace it with capital Q, then that is your double quotes, equivalent to double quotes. So it should print the variable name there. So it is going to replace the value of the variable. Okay. All right. So do you understand the difference between single quotes and double quotes? Okay. So let us do some more exercises also. There are there are some more exercises which you can do from here substrings. So let's say, for example, you have a string called hello. Okay, and then you can again do some operations like printing only one character or range of characters, or you want to print the length of the string like that. So this is how it works. So when you actually use a string, the entire string is considered as an array of characters. And then how many characters are there totally? 5 characters. The length of the array will be 5, and I think sometimes it will also add +1 because the new line character also will be there. Enter. Okay. So -1. So S of 0 will give you the first character. So when you have the array, so array always actually has a position or it's called index. The index will tell you the position of your character in that particular array. So if you say hello, so when you have 5 characters here, so consider the characters like this, HELLO. Okay, so that becomes an array here, and totally you have 5 characters, and then the position is going to start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you want to, let's say, capture character E, then you can say S of 1. So this is your position, or called index. Okay, position of your character, and this is in the right side direction. Sometimes you want to get the last character, you don't know how many characters are there. You can simply say S of -1, different opposite direction. So it starts with -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Dot length. There are methods actually. Okay, so there are default methods also. So here in Ruby there is also one more thing. Every class, every data type is considered as a class, and then you can apply some methods directly on your class. Okay. So let us see some more examples. So S0 will give you the first character. S of -1 will give you the last character like O, and S dot length. S is the name of the variable here. Simply say S dot length. It prints 5, the length of the string. Okay. So if you say S of -1 equals to P, so it means you are assigning some new value to the last character. So the last character will be replaced here. I think it should, okay, there should be another character L here. So it becomes HELLP. You are replacing last character with the P. O will be replaced with the P. Okay. And you can also give a range of characters here. If you say S 0, 2, which means from 0, give me 2 characters. The first one is the position. The second one is the number of characters you want to capture. Okay, so that gives you HEA. So here it will also give you from last character 1 character. So don't think like when you say -1, it will come in the reverse direction. The number of characters should always be again to the forward direction. If you say S of -1, 1, you will get what you will get. S of -1 O, and I am saying the number of characters 1. Okay, if I say S of -1, 2, O. No, it's not OL. That's what people always usually think it is. Again, it gives you in the reverse direction. But from O, again, number of characters on the right hand side only. So do you have any more characters? -1 is always the last character. So even if you say -1, 2, you'll get only O. Okay, don't get OL. Okay. Okay, so there are different ways also, like to get the characters from an array inside a loop. If you want to do some operations like on a string, so there are different ways, but we'll take this somewhere at the end of the session. Okay, so we have a lot of examples also. I don't know if the examples are available in Wiki. Let me make sure. If they are not there, I'll upload. Okay, here I have not mentioned. Okay, so Ruby is not uploaded. That's fine. I'll upload it. Okay, so let us look at the next data type. So we'll take a break after the data types once we cover the data types. Okay. So arrays is the next data type. So as I said, array is nothing but a collection of similar data types. Collection of similar data types, but in other languages. The reason here, so you can also collect. So these are similar data types in Ruby, 1, 2, and then you can also collect different data types. So that is again the difference in Ruby. So you can put different data types together. Okay, and there are also nested arrays, array inside an array. Okay. So again, just like the way we discussed, array has always the index, right? So if you have multiple items, it will always start with index, and then you can capture the particular element from an array. And arrays are untyped and mutable. So arrays, there is no type here. We are not giving, in fact, we are not giving any type for any character, any data type. So do you remember in this C, how do you declare a variable? You always say int A or char C, something like that. But here we are not mentioning that because you don't need to type, because in C, if you make a variable like int A, so throughout the life cycle of the variable, that particular A will not be able to hold a different data type. It can carry only integers. If you are trying to assign, let's say, another character, say hello, it will not accept because it gives you, because C, that is a limitation. But here in Ruby, it can hold one type of data for some time, and then you can change a different data type. So that is also possible in Ruby. So there are a lot of differences actually. So Ruby has made a lot of flexible, user friendly, developer friendly. Okay. So the elements of an array need not all of the same class, and they can be changed anytime also. Okay, and the size and length methods return the number of elements in an array. You have both size and length methods. They give you both same. So 1, 2, 3. This is also a fixed number, and you can also use a range operator. This is actually dynamic array. So when you say 1, 2, 3, you know exactly there are only 3 elements. You are giving that exactly. But here you say -10, 0. If you look at the elements, how many you see actually? -10, dot 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 0, 0 dot dot 10. It looks like you have only 2 elements, but actually -10 dot dot 0 is actually called a range operator in Ruby, and then that itself expands to 10 elements. So here it looks it in the back end it actually has 10 elements and another 10 elements, total 20. In fact, 10 plus 0, 11 plus 11, 22 elements within an array. That's called dynamic arrays. Okay. And you have nested array. Sorry. I'll come to the range operator. That was just an example. So we also have a range operator. I'll talk about it. So you have a nested arrays here where you can put array inside an array, and this is actually an empty array. So if you simply say square bracket, it's an empty array. Okay. So like this, you can have different data types. So look at this. So the first data type is a string. The next one is integer, and again the last one is again another array. So you are actually putting different data types together into an array here. Okay. And then you can use the similar string example. So A of 0 will give you, say, Ganga, the string. -1 will give you the last entire array, 3, 5, 7. Okay. And A dot length, the number of elements. So if you want to, let's say you have already array here, A of 3 will give you the last array, and again this is also an array, right? So within array you want to again capture some particular element, either 0, 1, 2. So when you say 1, it's 0, 1 and 2, 3. So this is 0, this is 1 and this is 2. So when you say A of 3, you will get 3 of 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, and A of 3 of 1 will give you the first element. Okay. Okay, so there is also different ways to declare arrays. How do you initialize arrays? So this is a simple array here. Okay, so the previous one was just an example here. So you are using square brackets, and the important thing is, what is the separator of elements here? Comma. So that is the default syntax. But there are other ways to declare your arrays. Say words and give a percentile W, just like percentile Q there, and then square brackets. This is a text. Here you are using the white space character. W for white space character is considered as a separator. So wherever there is a space, okay, the characters are separated by space are considered as different elements. So with that, this first element is, second element A, third element S, fourth element. So in fact, that is equivalent to writing the array like this. So why do you think we have a different syntax here? Just to save some keystrokes. If you want to write this, see how many keystrokes you have. You have to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 keystrokes extra. You have to type single quotes, commas. Okay, this is just for a 4-word, let's say, sentence. If you have a big sentence, do you want to separate that? And in fact, if you want to consider, or if you want to print any sentence where, like, you have a sentence, imagine you have a sentence and you want to take out every word from there and then put it in a line one after another. You want to separate every word just to do some processing. Or how many of you have seen this example? You have a page and you want to count the number of repeated words. So you have to write a big program for that in either in Java or C. So with this syntax, it becomes very, very useful. So I have few examples actually. I'll put those examples. Okay. So Ruby has very kind of, these are called like shortcuts. Ruby has a lot of, in fact, Python also has very developer friendly. Okay, if you want to use some special characters again, so this is how you can use. You can declare. You can either say empty equals to simple square brackets, or you can say array dot new. So this is a kind of a formal way of initializing a array, or you can also simply say, sorry, where is that? Yeah, there are a lot of ways. Okay, so you can either say empty equals to simple square brackets, or you can say array dot new. Both will initialize an empty array. Okay, so you don't understand. So this is array declaration. It's a very simple declaration. Okay, and you can also use this syntax. This is a formal way of declaration. Okay, so you can also use the string dot new like this. Okay, again there are different options you can perform where you can actually capture multiple elements. Same examples, what we have seen in strings. If you want to capture 2 elements from first position, okay, this one of A of 1, 2 from position 1, give me 2 elements. Where is that position 1? B and C. You will get B and C, right? -2 to 2. So this means D and E. So minus 2 is D. From there, two elements. Okay. So you can also replace. So A of 0, comma 2, the first two will be replaced with capital A and B. So here these are all capitals. So first small a and b will be replaced with capital A and B. Okay. And you have again few more examples, advanced examples, where you can append extra elements. So you want to add more elements, or you want to extract that, or you want to remove one particular element. So you can do a lot of operations on arrays. So let us go forward. So let us look at another data type called hashes. This is called either hash or also maps, or also called associative arrays. So declaration is either you can use hash dot in new, or h equals to flower braces or curly braces. Okay, square brackets for array, curly braces are for hash maps. Okay, so how do you add variables or key value pairs into an array? No, sorry, a hash map. So this is how you can use. So let's say I want to add few key value pairs. So I'll use h of name. Name is your key here, and Satish is the value for this particular key. And experience, let's say 15, location Hyderabad. So it is going to create a hash map with three key value pairs: name Satish, experience 15, location Hyderabad. So that will be inside your hash map. So when you build the hash map, it looks like this. Okay. So if you want to print those back again, you can use a similar syntax. So say use puts h of name, puts h of experience, put h of location. That prints the value of that particular key. Instead of the position here, so in arrays we use the position a of 0, h of 0, 1, 2. But instead of the position here, we use the key name. Okay. And sometimes you might want to find out or print all the key value pairs. Let's say you have 10 key value pairs. I don't know what are all those, but I just want to print it. Print all the keys or print all the values, for example. So you can actually take some examples. I'll give you some examples out here. I was expecting this question from someone, but so you're paying attention. That, yeah. So that in that case, if you put a string, in fact you can use it. There is nothing wrong. But in that case, you cannot use it for arithmetic calculation because it becomes a string, 1, 5. So all these numbers are also considered as characters, right? So if you want to use that as a number, you should use just 50. Okay. And if you want to print, let's say puts h will print the entire hash map. Okay, so that prints the entire hash map. Or you can also actually use this same hash map like this. If you want to initialize what is this? So what I'm trying to do, entire block commented. So I can also initialize the hash map in just one line. So if you have multiple key value pairs, initialize all of them here, and then let's say I want to print puts h of name. Okay, and it has again multiple methods. For example, I want to print all the variables or the keys. I want to print all the values. So you can use puts h dot keys. It's a simple method. So it will print all the keys, name of the keys. Okay, and then it has also got values. So all the values will be printed. Okay, so that's about the hash map. So we'll look at it. So this is like a for loop. So we'll predefined sort function is, yes, there is also sort functionality. Yeah, absolutely. So let's say I want to use sort. So this is actually giving an array. So let us see if this works. So sort actually is now array. Comparison of a string with the 15 field argument error hash. So not required. So this should be to sort. You need a different thing. Yeah, actually there is sort sort methods. Sort is there, split to join. There are a lot of things available actually. The only thing we need to pass the appropriate data type for that. Okay, so we'll see some examples. So you also have length. You can apply this length. So h dot value is actually an array, and if you have to count it, you can apply this and you get the number of values. So it's very simple. Yeah, you can use this. So here we need to understand what are you actually getting with the h. H is hash. So on hash we can apply some methods where like keys, values, and then few more methods. So when you print h dot values, okay, you are getting some data, and let's say if it is integer, you can apply different methods like what are you can do. So there are different methods for integers like up to and I think count, or there are few methods. And if it is string, split to join, there are some methods. If it is array, dot length, dot size, there are some methods. Hash map, keys to values to size, again there are different methods. So on every data type you can apply some methods. Okay, but I want to know what is actually the data type coming out in the output. So it actually looks like, when I say h dot values, so it is actually printing in a sequence. You might feel it is actually the strings, multiple strings, or it could be an array also, right? So if you want to know what data type it is returning, okay, when I am using this, I want to know what data type is actually is coming as an output. So you can actually print, say dot class. It will tell you what type of data you are getting there. So you are getting an array, and then so since there are multiple elements, it is printing one after another. So whatever the methods you can apply on array can be applied on this directly here. So instead of class, you can apply all the array methods on this, on the h dot values, size. అంతే ఇంకా ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ లాంగ్వేజ్ అంటే ఇంక ఏ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ చూసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాలి తప్పదు. So it is also 3 length, size, both same. Maybe just to avoid confusion, and some people might look for size, some people might look for length. Both difference in the oh, okay. Okay, yeah, there could be some differences definitely. Okay, so that's the hash map. Okay, so you can put different key value pairs into hash, and then you can get whatever you want. All right, so you can use the put h of the key name, and then you get the value of the particular key. So that will be printed on the screen, right? And the next one would be constants. Oh, sorry, ranges. It's not actually separate operator. Yeah. Yeah, so there is also a range. It's not data type. It is actually considered as an what do you call operator. Okay. So here I think you have seen this in the previous slide, right? So where you have a dot, one dot dot 10 and one triple dot 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 10. So in both cases, it gives you a dynamic array of different numbers, like from 1 to 10. When you use 1 dot dot 10, so remember the integers 1 through 10 including 10. So the array will be from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When you use 2 dots. If you use 1 triple dot 10, the range will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 only. So the right hand side number is not included when you use 3 dots. So any guess why, where we can use that? When you are actually working on array, the position starts with 0. So though you have 5 numbers, you have to work till 4 only. Maybe in that case, I think I'm just guessing. I don't have any examples, but yeah. So you can pick. So this 1 dot dot 10 will generate a dynamic array from 1 to 10. What about this one? This you can use anywhere. I don't know. I don't know. So there is no option, at least straight option to exclude the first number. Okay. So 1 dot dot 10 will give you 1 to 10 including 10, and 1 dot 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 10 will give you 1 to 10, that excludes. So 1 to 9 only. All right. So few examples. So where you can say, so just a very simple example, like you have a year, or you have a range, for example, a range of years like 1990 to 2014, and you just want to check if your year of birth falls in that range or not. Okay, I'm sure if you know any other language, you can feel the difference. To get this result, definitely it's not definitely 3 lines. You have to write minimum 10 to 12 lines. Without that, it is difficult in other language, because you have to write a for loop, check if, okay, 1990 equals to 1998, no, move on. 1991 equals to 91. So you have to write a for loop to continue all these, what do you call, arithmetic comparison. And if something matches, then you will print, okay, it matches. If it does not print, then you will say finally at the end, you will say it does not match. So that can be achieved again with simple 3 lines. So here we have a range operator, years equals to 1990 dot dot 2014. Just imagine without that, what you will have to do. So if you don't have this range operator, array, so 1990, 91, 92, 92, do you want to give? So that becomes a very tedious job. Enumerators, I don't know what is that. Define your own constants here. I think that is what it is called, a constant. That is called a constant here, constant in data type. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think that could be possible. Yeah, that could be. So otherwise, years, start year 1990, end year 2014, and then write a for loop. Since we know it is going to be like a continuous sequence, you can write a for loop instead of creating an array. So that is something you have to find out an alternative here. Yeah. So so here you can say years dot include my birthday, for example. So if it so this day is this range, or if this year falls in between this range, you will get it is 2. The result exit status. remember the exit status will be 0, true, or it will give you false. Okay, and similarly you can also use this for a.c for alphabets characters. Where is this constant? Okay, somehow I think I missed the, okay. Symbols is slightly a confusing thing, but anyways, we don't use this much, so let me skip it. But I think I forgot constants. Where is it gone? Constants are variables question. So constant is actually a variable type. Okay, that's fine. So it's not a part of data type. All right, that's fine. So that these are the main data types that we will be using in Chef also, especially the arrays and hashes. Of course, integer strings are anyways used, but we'll also use arrays and hash maps heavily in Chef. Okay, if you open the attributes, if you go to any cookbook on supermarket, if you open the attributes default.rb, there will be a hell lot of variables which are defined by using that h of name. Remember that syntax? So with that same syntax. So don't get confused now. So you know what is actually hash map, how does it look? So it would help you to understand, okay, that's a hash map, and you have the name of the hash map and what are the variables inside that. Okay, after this we'll see some examples also on Chef, so that you will understand. We'll pick some examples. Okay, so let's take a break, 15-minute break. Once we come back, we will cover the variables, and we also have arithmetic operators. I think we just have to run through all of this quickly. Okay. All right. So let's go for a break. So guys, we will be again back. Yes, guys. Any question?
No, I'm just checking at what time we are closing the session.
Sorry.
No, at what time we are closing the session?
Session, I think it will last till 12:30 IST. 1.5 hour more.
Okay.
All right. Okay.